Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. If you're one day planning on receiving an inheritance, or perhaps you want to leave one to your kiddos, maybe both, you're not alone. More and more Americans are receiving inheritances. In fact, more than 60% of US households said they've gotten, will get, or intend to give inheritances compared to 46% reported 7 years prior. And it's not just the wealthy or the ultra wealthy who are leaving inheritances. 54% of US households with less than $100,000 in investable assets expect to receive or leave an inheritance as of 2022. That's a 15% increase from 2015. And while the vast majority of inheritances that are passed on are less than $500,000, 13% are greater than $500,000. And about 1 in every 20 inheritances surpass the $1 million mark. But passing on any sizable sum is impactful. Now I'm just doing the highlights of this report, whatever is available publicly. If you want to read the full detailed report, it'll cost you a cool $9,000. This does show that it is becoming more and more commonplace for the everyday American to plan on leaving an inheritance. It's no longer reserved for the wealthiest members of society. And while the vast majority of these inheritances are less than $500,000, that's still a pretty high threshold, and it would represent a mighty windfall. No matter what size inheritance you plan on leaving behind, you want to make sure it's handled well. This passing on of property, investments, and cash is referred to as generational wealth. Now, of course, other things could be included here as well. Think like a stake in a family business or even collectibles. But I think generational wealth could actually be expanded to include items not necessarily of tangible value. I think the very foundation of generational wealth starts with a financial education and financial preparedness. And regardless of what your portfolio looks like, I think the vast majority of people have the opportunity to teach their children or their grandchildren about money. A lot of times when people are preparing to leave something to the next generation, they might have the mindset of, okay, I have developed great money habits. I've worked and I've saved my entire life to build this nest egg that I'm passing on to the next generation. So obviously they're going to foster it and grow it. But sadly, often that's not the case. In fact, 70% of wealthy families will lose their wealth by the second generation, and 90% will lose it by the third. So that money you worked so hard to build has no guarantee of staying power, and the primary reason comes down to communication. It's reported that 64% of parents admit they've talked very little or not at all about their wealth to their children. And you can't just assume that someone will know how to handle a financial windfall if they've never experienced it before. And you probably likely developed a great knowledge base for money as you built wealth. You felt the sacrifice and the patience necessary to build it. You learned how to preserve it. You made a plan to pass it on. The skills you have after 40, 50, 60 years of building wealth are not comparable to someone who has 6 or 7 figures just fall into their lap. I'm actually inclined to believe those stats. I remember reading The Snowball about the legendary Warren Buffett himself, and he was talking about passing on shares of Berkshire Hathaway to each of his 3 children when they reached adulthood, and each of the 3 spent it. And I remember he said, I just never thought they would spend it. And even in my own life, on a much smaller scale, my grandma, when each of her 4 grandkids was born, made a deposit in their name that she gave to them when they reached 18. Now, we were all born roughly around the same time, so when we were 18, it was about $10,000 to $12,000. 3 of the 4 grandkids completely cashed out their account and turned it into a down payment on a car. I bet you can figure out who the lone standout was. And being that this was 20 years ago, none of those cars are around anymore. So I still have this fund, and I jokingly refer to it as my car fund since that's what everyone else used it to buy. But should I ever need to buy a car, I could do it outright, no payment. So while I think it is wonderful and generous to plan to leave something to the next generation, I think you have to lay the foundation before you pass on things with tangible value. I think you have to start with an education. I really think the best thing you can do for your kiddos is to have an open dialogue about money. And of course, these conversations have to be age appropriate. You probably don't want to talk to your 4-year-old about taxes, but inevitably kids are watching your every move. They are very perceptive. They will learn what you're doing with your money. By the time kids get their first allowance, this could be as early as 5 or 6, they should be taught about the 3 main buckets: spending, saving, and giving. By the time they reach middle school, you want to introduce the idea of budgeting, investing, compounding, and delayed gratification. By the time they go to high school, you want to discuss incomes, debts, and credit cards. By the time they graduate, they should have a solid and well-rounded financial education and be able to handle money on their own. I really give my mom so much credit when it comes to the foundation of my financial habits. She was so open when it came to finances. I used to sit at the kitchen table and go through the bills with her, so I'd see the income that came in and the money it took going out to pay the bills. When she lost her job, I learned about an emergency fund. When she got a job back, I learned about setting aside a small piece for investments and learned what that could grow to over time. She was a math teacher, so I'm pretty sure she just enjoyed having me run this compounding equation longhand, but she never said I was too young for anything. And I'm sure there are plenty of times that I didn't understand what the heck was happening, but I wouldn't change a thing about that. I really think one of the most powerful things you can do for your kids is to teach them about money early and often. If you teach them how to handle money, you can set them up for a lifetime of financial success. And also you want to teach them how to earn money so they can be self-sufficient. Outside of simply teaching your kids about money, there are some things you can do to start this process of generational wealth. Set your kid up as an authorized user on your credit card. And you can do this when they're just babies. And you might be thinking, what the heck does a baby need a credit card for? Well, they don't, but being added as an authorized user on your credit card allows you to get started on building their credit history right away. You don't even have to hand them the credit card. You can either cut it up or store it in a safe place. Then you simply continue using your credit card as usual, putting items on it and paying it off in full every single month. Keep in mind, if you're not paying your credit card off in full every single month, you're not ready for a credit card. And absolutely don't add your kid. You don't want to ding their credit history. Only do this if you have pristine credit usage. But if you do this, by the time your kid reaches the age of 18, they could have a credit history that is 18 years long. They could have a credit score that's in the high 700s. This can help them rent an apartment or a few years down the road get a more favorable interest rate when it comes to buying a car or buying a home. The biggest obstacle working against young adults when it comes to credit is a lack of a credit history. Even if they have impeccable money habits, it can make these everyday tasks hard. This process takes probably all of 10 minutes and can save your kid big time down the road. College is very expensive, and many parents want to help prevent their kids from being loaded with student loan debt, and 529 accounts are a great way to prepare. 529 accounts are tax advantaged. While you contribute post-tax dollars, the money in the account can grow tax-free. And if you take it out for qualified educational expenses, it can be withdrawn tax-free. And it doesn't have to be exclusively for a 4-year university. Some states offer income tax deductions on 529 contributions. There is no federal deduction. And if your kid doesn't use their full 529, you can transfer it to another child. Or beginning in 2024, beneficiaries of 529 accounts will have the option to roll over up to $35,000 over the course of their lifetime to their Roth IRA. At least you don't have to worry that this money will go unused. You can open up a custodial Roth IRA for your kids to help them take advantage of tax-free compounding. This is easy for your teen who might have earned income, because that's the big stipulation with the Roth IRA. You have to have earned income. But if you own your own business, you can hire your baby or your toddler as a contractor in the form of talent, take their picture, use them in a few videos, pay them up to the Roth contribution limit, and go ahead and fund their Roth. Do that for 18 years and your kid could graduate high school with over $250,000. And if they never touch that account again, simply left it invested, at the age of 65, that kiddo could have over $10 million. A trust is a wonderful way to pass on your wealth. Not only can it help you reduce taxes, but it also allows you to attach rules to passing on your wealth. For instance, you could say you can only withdraw 5% from the fund every single year, or maybe they can only access certain amounts once they reach certain ages, like 25, then 30, and so on. You can really set up whatever rules you want, and a good estate planning attorney can help you walk through that. Ultimately, the goal of generational wealth is to give your kid a little bit of a leg up, to stand on your shoulders, so to speak. It allows each subsequent generation to be a little bit better off, and I don't know what parent doesn't want that. Of course, it's the investments and the properties that you pass on, but it all starts with a solid education. And there are small things you can do along the way to ensure the next generation doesn't fall prey to those terrible statistics, in that they continue to preserve the wealth that you started. Are you planning on leaving an inheritance one day? If so, what are you doing to prepare? Leave your thoughts in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.